inactive and static principles of divinity. Often, several questions have been raised about what God is. Is he qualityless, nirguna? Or is he ever active, running the entire universe? Or is he directly responsible for every action and reaction? Has he only established certain laws and is merely watching the world to take its own course? What precisely should a man seek for him? Or can he be totally neglected? In the running of the universe, every action must yield results. Good actions, that is punya karma, yield good results, and bad actions yield bad results. Man with this egoistic nature commits sins but always looks for results of good actions. Some, when they are not able to withstand the results of bad actions, turn to God, worship Him, pray to Him, and seek for an escape from the results of his past sins. The question is, if the law of karma, that is action, and its result giving nature alone is everything, there is no need for a separate God entity. The fact is that God, apart from being a lawmaker, is also the giver of results. He is really the judge for the quantum of result to be given for each action. The attitude with which and the circumstances in which these actions are performed have also the influence on the result. All this has to be precisely judged, and the results are to be given to everyone with no favoritism or partiality. In addition to this, when prayers and worship are directed to Him, He also grants relief to the individuals to the extent they have been able to apply to Him. This might raise a doubt that God is partial to the extent. The truth is that He is really not. But then, how can it be answered that a God seeker has reduced punishment when a list of good actions and their corresponding results have been established in the beginning by the lawmaker? The very first and foremost good action, which is above all, has been determined as a recognition of God as the doer of everything. Next only come all other good actions. This has been the part of law made by Him and is really applicable to any individual like all other laws. To the one who is constantly engaged in recognizing Him as the real doer, no result is readily attached. Such is His law. Lawmaking and result giving is His dynamic nature or active principle. Apart from this and different from it, there is also the inactive principle in Him. This nature is such that He stands aloof from all the dynamism and is only a witness of everything. All the dynamic activity stops the moment He ceases to be a witness. Hence, this inactive principle is very important in the running of the universe. The inactive and active principles of the divinity are always together in every universal action. An individual who is concerned about the mundane results should necessarily pray to the dynamic principle of divinity for satisfying his desires. However, because of his egoistic nature, he would again commit some bad actions. The results of good or bad actions are only time-bound. They again motivate him to do more and more of either good or bad actions according to his past karma, and thus always keep him under the cycle of law of karma. Hence it is wisdom to pray to God for a desireless state. If, however, one has a tendency to get attached to mundane results, it is not wrong to ask God for something that he is aspiring for, which should be in the righteous path, thereby satisfying a dharmic desire. While doing so, it would be advisable to pray simultaneously for a desireless state. The entire Buddhism advocates such a state and has set this as the highest goal for mankind. In this, Although the separate God entity has not been recommended as essential, the help of Buddha is taken to be necessary by all the seekers to achieve such a state. An individual, as he evolves, drifts from the state of paying attention to mundane results and seeks inactive principle of divinity. He who has experienced this inactive principle is a mukta, that is liberated from the cycle of births and deaths. He becomes a jnani. It is also said that to the extent that this inactive principle is experienced, he would also be in possession of some Shakti or some dynamic power of divinity. This is because, after all, the inactive principle means the Sankalpa, which is the cause and container of all activity, although by itself it is a mere Sakshi. The interesting feature of creation is that all powers are bestowed in that which is not taking part in it. However, a real seeker pays no attention to these, but goes on to experience completely the inactive principle of divinity, becomes a jnani, and then only he is finally liberated. In the process, the attention is diverted to this dynamic power. It would be equivalent of being drawn into the cycle of law of karma, probably now with more vigor. Apart from the active and inactive principles, God also has in him the static principles. Actually, this is his very core and is present in him always. That is, even before he has engaged himself in worldly activity. It is impossible to describe this state by any amount of vocabulary or convey it by any thought. It has only to be experienced and stands as the highest goal one can achieve. Unless this is achieved, the evolution is not complete for any individual. The understanding and experience of the inactive principle is, although good enough to make one liberated from the cycle of births and deaths, it is still said to be within the world, and it is possible that he may have to take rebirth after the dissolution of the physical world and when a new creation is started. But the one who has experienced and merged in the static nature of God is complete in his evolution and is a non-returnable basis forever. The dynamic aspect of divinity concerning the creation takes place in 1/4 of his Virat Swarupa. The energy, matter, space, time matrix exists in this quarter only. The last three of the 5 Brahmas, Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra, perform their respective functions here. Beyond this is the timeless space occupying the other 3/4 of this universal form. This state is the state of yogic sleep of Mahavishnu. The timeless space is filled with the pure sattvic tejas of Mahavishnu. This aspect is the Sakshi, the onlooker of his other worldly activities. There is pure universal ego in this state, which is his inactive principle. Beyond this state is his static principle, wherein there is no perceiver or perception. This is termed as Nirguna Brahman. Corresponding to the Shakta school of thought, the 4th Brahman is Shiva, the inactive principle of divinity. The Parashiva is the Pasyanta, that is bed or base, on whom Shakti is sitting. This Shakti is the dynamism of all 4 Brahmas. The first 3 padas of Gayatri pertain to the words symbolized by Bhu, Bhuva, Suva, existing as the 1/4 of the universal form. The 4th para, Paro Rajasi, Sa Avatumam, is about his remaining 3/4. It must be remembered that the 3/4 aspect is not separated from the dynamic 1/4 aspect. The dynamic aspect is superimposed on the timeless span. The reflections of the timeless space aspect are also present within the time world at certain points where one could experience timelessness physically. In other words, the matter, Energy and time get involved at three spots. Black holes identified by the present day scientists are these points only. There are 24 of them corresponding to 24 Vishnus, starting with Keshava. It is in them the corresponding Brahmas and Rudra who have come out of them merge eventually. The containing of the timeless space which is beyond the dynamic world, within the world as synonymous to the Brahman contained in man, thus making it possible for him to experience it. This is the basis of the yogic thought. Because it is contained in man that is able to conceive the very existence of black holes of the universe. While there have been a number of great souls who have achieved this ultimate experience and merger in the static nature of God and consequent complete evolution, God alone stands exclusive in containing all the above three natures of Him simultaneously. Unless this aspect of totality descends, it is not possible for any individual to rise to this unique state of all three aspects containing in one. Souls who have experienced the highest static state of God are no doubt very great, but it is very difficult for a common man to derive benefits from them at all levels. It would be necessary for him to rise first to such a level as to be able to receive the benefits from them. Even speaking of avatars of God, not all of them are total in containing all the above three aspects completely. For example, in Rama avatar, while the static and dynamic principles are very much in him, the inactive principle has not been brought down in that incarnation. The avatar has descended with pure sattvic nature, mainly with a view to demonstrate how one should be with such a nature. That being so, a common aspirant with so many shortcomings in him finds it hard to evolve himself in Ramopasana. It is only for a great soul like Sri Hanuman it was possible to reap the fullest from such an avatar. These three principles in different combinations could be noticed in the avatars, in the evolution of avatars, Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narsimha, Vamana, and even Parashurama have manifested the dynamic aspect only because they have come for giving punishment only. The space occupied by the feet of Vamana in the lokas within the one-fourth of Virat Purusha, that is what Trivikrama. Ramavatar is interesting in its own way. The space occupied by the feet of Vamana in the lokas within the one-fourth of the Virat Purusha, that is what Trivikrama is. Ramavatar is interesting in its own way. The static and dynamic aspects have together descended through him, the Sakshi absent. He had immeasurable powers and might to subdue demons. By his own earlier Sankalpa, he has come down to live like an ordinary mortal. He was going through the life with all its dynamic aspects, but not seeing it as a divinity at the same time. But he was in Brahman, and Brahman was in him. He knew that he could do anything. Ordinary human beings also have in them these two principles. The difference being that the static principle is surrounded by a shield of avidya. Hanuman saw Brahman in him, on whom he meditated in his heart, and at the same time served him physically, as the divinity was performing many physical actions like any other mortal. Hanuman did not even think for a moment the need and indispensability of his help in Rama's mission to find Sita and to get her back. While talking to Sita, also Hanuman reports that Rama is undergoing the pangs of separation and at the same time asserts that he can subdue all the worlds if he wills. These statements are not contradictory but only describe Rama's first and third principles, namely static and dynamic, inactive being absent. Shravatara is complete in this aspect. It has descended with all three aspects in it Hence, he is the real guru for all mankind, great sages, and even celestial beings. None else could have indulged in as many activities as he did, absolutely watching them as Sakshi. No ego or doership present any time, and keeping Brahman at the core of his heart. His was the most evolved avatar. All the three principles in him were helpful for all the seekers, some of whom were ordinary gopis, while the others were rishis. Krishna only enacted his actions but did not go through them like Rama. It was obvious from his outward activities that he was within the reach of everyone. He played in common terms with ignorant gopis and involved himself with high politics with kings, dealt severely with all the demons and men of evil character. In his superhuman aspect, he has been a guide for jnanis like Vidura, Bhishma, and Akrura, and finally he has taught a lesson to Indra, king of gods. This was possible as he was brought on him the full dynamism. Each and every one of his actions has been executed with such perfect wisdom that they stand as path showers for the future ages. At the same time, he was equally in his inactive nature because none of his actions could bind him, which would have been the case with any other soul possessing an ego even for the short time. The static nature of God also was complete in him. Although this cannot be judged and discussed by outside world, anyone who could experience what Krishna is, setting aside completely his ego, could be in such a bliss as Sri Mahavishnu is in his yogic sleep. This bliss, which is very difficult to achieve even for the greatest of yogis, has been made available through this avatar for such innocent and ignorant souls as gopis. Such is the greatness and completeness of this avatar. Only the one that contains all the three aspects is the real guru for seekers of all nature and classes. Blessed are they who can acquire such a guru. The working of active and inactive principles of divinity for the world and their effects are planned and nicely projected in a symbolic manner for the education of mankind in the interesting episode Subhadra Paranayam. Balarama and Krishna symbolize the inactive and active principles of divinity. Interestingly enough, the latter is later born in the world functioning. Subhadra symbolizing created world is born together with the two principles of divinity. These three are depicted as the principal idols in Puri Jagannath. It is clear from the shape of the idols that the one placed on the right with eyes wide open is Krishna, symbolizing the dynamic principle of divinity and hence having round eyes looking at the world. The left one is Balarama, symbolizing the dynamic principle of divinity, hence having round eyes looking to the world. The left one is Balarama, symbolizing the inactive principle of divinity, with its two eyes turned inward. While every activity is planned and executed by Krishna, the dynamic principle, the Karta, for all this activity remained Balarama, that is the inactive principle for namesake only. It is Arjuna, Nara, he is Nara, symbolizing Jiva got interested in Subhadra, that is the world, and sought the help of Krishna for their union. With his blessings they were wedded. As a result of all this, Abhimanyu, symbolizing bodily attachment, is born. It is again Krishna, the dynamic principle, who plans and executes the entry of Abhimanyu into Padmavyuha on a non-returnable basis. Padmavyuha symbolizes Anahata Padma, where the ego is taken in and destroyed. This great episode thus symbolizes a great truth. In consonance with Master. ఈ ప్రకృతిని నువ్వు ఇంత ప్రేమిస్తావు, అది తిరిగి నీకేమిస్తోంది? నువ్వు చనిపోతే దుఃఖించడం కూడా లేదే. దానిపై నీకెందుకీ మమకారం? ఈ పంచభూతాలు నీకేమిస్తున్నాయి అని హార్నెస్లో ప్రశ్న వేసుకో. పై దారి కనిపిస్తుంది. యూ మస్ట్ బి ఎ పర్ఫెక్ట్ హ్యూమన్ బీయింగ్. Human values are very important. If you are egoistic, Guru simply withdraws. If you are open, simple, sweet, straightforward, and honest, you will accept the criticism of Guru and correct yourself. If you defend yourself immediately for a remark, you are egoistic. Egoist rejects the remarks and criticism from Guru. You must take harsh remarks, harshness, and even accusations from Guru in the right spirit. You must think Guru is always right and the pointed remark is true and it is aimed at the perfection of the disciple. Buddha had a disciple, Ananda, who followed his Guru everywhere and served him. One day Buddha was lying in the cave and was hungry. Ananda went to beg in 3 houses. In one home where bhiksha was sure to be given, there was some Pitrakaryam and there was no bhiksha. So he brought the empty bowl and was sitting outside. Buddha called him and aloud and said, I am very hungry, feed me with what you brought. Ananda replied, I did not get any bhiksha. Buddha said, then you want me to die due to hunger? No, no disciple wants his Guru to die. So Ananda was silent. Buddha said, go and see if there is food in the bowl. Ananda went out and saw the bowl was full of food. He brought it in to feed his master. Then Buddha said, why did you lie? Ananda replied, yes, sir, I told a lie. Buddha hugged his disciple and said, from this moment onwards, you are a part of my soul and not a separate entity. When Buddha said to see if the bowl is containing any food, that very minute the bowl was filled with food because nature has to obey the truth. Nature supplied matter into the bowl. Buddha is truth. Nature obeyed him. In saying that, yes, sir, I told a lie, Ananda is right technically. There was no food initially, and then when he saw next it was filled with food. So Ananda is right in admitting to Master. Here Master's accusation is aimed not regarding the matter, but to the soul of Ananda. Improvement of Ananda, the disciple's total submission to Master, is ultimate. Ananda did not defend, did not utter a single word to protest, but submitted himself totally to his Master. Ananda was richly rewarded by his Master for this. It is said that Ananda followed his Master even in death. To Master, world is not at all important. People are not important. Your pranams are not important. You alone, that too only a few who surrender to him. He who is available to Master for correction, that is important to Master. Defense, your ego, your self-respect, your pretense in the spiritual field, all is futile. Master is concerned only with a few individuals who surrender to him, submit to him totally, seek him, long for him, and be available to him for corrections. Nothing else matters to Master. Before seeking spiritualism, the prime requisite is to be an excellent human being. Man should develop kindness, charity, tolerance, such positive qualities. Transparency, modesty, and humility are the virtues and the platform where from one can reach God. But remember, one is called a good man, not just for the positive qualities that he possesses, but also for the absence of negative qualities in him. Light and darkness cannot coexist. As Kabir says, where there is Ram, there is no Kabir. When Kabir emerges, Ram ceases. One who studiously practices the known human and moral values becomes a sthita prajna. That state alone is the hard ground one can kick off to take off. To him, nothing matters. His stillness enables him to manage all the outer activities through his well-refined body-mind complex without getting trapped either in action or its results. Krishna is the best example. None of the million activities that flowed through him ever touched him as he never touched any. The Lord in him was always watching Krishna, the man in him. He had nothing to do with his activities. Similarly, the man in there was also watching only the Lord Krishna. Him and him were watching each other permanently. There was thus an inseparable oneness and undivided twosome in Krishna. It is something like the swimmer staying ashore and the shadow negotiating the river. It does not get wet, you see. Consciousness turning inward to feel the then awakened inner reality face chittam, ahankaram, that is consciousness, ego are seemingly two, but in essence one and the same like lamp and light. Ego is nothing but the self identifying itself with the body. The moment the consciousness turns inward, this wrong identity is lost, and what is inside is you. Therefore, the man must return to himself. When he does so, the world loses its grip over him. When that happens, he ceases to be the doer. Only then, what he is supposed to do and what is done through him will be in perfect agreement. This is called efficiency, the skill in action spoken by Krishna. If the consciousness turns inward, activities flow through the mind and body without affecting the inner fellow. This is how the will of God is understood. In the vision of Kailas, the significance is that the para has presented itself outward. So you are asked to open your eyes and keep looking at it. This means the closing the eyes need not mean turning inward. Therefore, the prescription, no mantra, no method, just keep looking at it. This technique of going around the center, keeping oneself fixed on it like circumambulating the deity in the temple is tapas. Know that you are the temple and that the center is in you. Understand that the very center which exists everywhere and for everything exists in you. When you realize that, you become that. For the purpose of understanding, take space as example. It prevails everywhere. Its centeredness is not altered, even when it is localized. There is no mutation in space. Everything exists in it, dwells in everything. It is never cognized, not to speak of being touched. Therefore, the tapas is that high pitch of activity which is beyond recognizable decibels. Activity in 1,000 battles is but a millionth of this tapas. There is ceaseless activity in space, but space does not act. So far as it is concerned, there is no result towards it. This resultless dynamism should be our goal. Only by reaching it, God is realized. It is extremely subtle and cannot be expressed. Remember, experience has no language and language has no experience. People want to achieve peace through happiness. That's why they never get it. A car or an air conditioner can make you happy, but how can it give peace? So first achieve peace and then happiness is ensured. It follows naturally. Ensure consciousness at peace, mind in happiness, and body at rest. This is what you must ensure. You are important to yourself and you have a primary responsibility to yourself. By understanding and remembering this, you must ensure the state that I recommend. Anything pertaining to this world can be well handled by body-mind complex. So you must never allow any mundane thought to get into chitta or consciousness. This is the secret, the key to remain in consonance with your master. After achieving this, you just wait. A question was asked, how to approach the usual worldly problems? Master says, whatever be the problem, you can think about it for say 2 minutes and take appropriate action. Whatever be the result, good or bad, Success or failure, do not get ruffled by it. Never fear the consequences. Treat anything as if it is lesser than the dust on your shoes. This is a positive pride, constituted by confidence and self respect. Pride without these qualities is mere vanity. Another question: what is right attitude? Master replies, that of a child. The child cries only for milk and stops crying when the milk is given. It is breastfed. When it grows a little old, the breastfeeding stops. This example should suffice. I want everyone to be brought back to the level of a child. It means one has to be totally deconditioned, emptied of all that one has acquired. This is how rishis lived. This is how Krishna demonstrated. How does one get back to the child's attitude? Another question. Master replies, do not expect anything. Do not propose anything. Do not await. Drop the idea of becoming this or that. Do not be caught in the whirlpool of success and failure, as meaningless as failure. The success of earning millions or the failure to earn a penny are made to look the same even before death. Like Vemana realized, understand that there is no purpose to life. You want to conquer death, then pay no attention to life. Stop living. The proof of path lies in the impossibility of returning to mundane things. Charity. The attitude of charity earns merit for you. Suppose you give me some money when I am in need. You may think that you are only clearing your debt, and I may think I am indebted to you. While giving, you did not own anything. You did not think you were giving. This charitable disposition of yours is bound to earn some merit for you, for future charity is not money. It is an attitude. That disposition gives you the merit and the money is involved in the process. When I am hungry, you may give me 10 rupees. I am so hungry that I run to a hotel, eat to my heart's content and feel full. It is my satisfaction and not your 10 rupees that is going to give you 1,000 kingly males in your next birth. It is the satisfaction that is the key factor. How to become a saint? A person who is all the time least conscious of the world around him and whose maximum attention of consciousness is on the other side of the world, he is a saint. Vairagya should be accompanied by tyaga or sacrifice. Tyaga is renunciation for which Vairagya is the precondition. Vairagya is a great power, disinterestedness in the world and the thought about leaving the world mark Vairagya. The wife may ask him to buy some provisions. He may not even understand that. It is that kind of nonplussed state, a totally dissociated state of mind. He looks blank, and that is the state of renunciation. It is the state of undisturbability. Such a person cannot be disturbed or dragged into worldly matters. In many people's lives, this has come as an aftermath of a shock, loss, or a great disappointment. The Saint Yogi Vemana is an example. Sadhak should ultimately be a saint. A sadhak should make God responsible for any event in life. Install the Lord in your heart and make Him responsible for everything. Go on showing your devotion and upasana unto Him and pray to Him to give you this or avoid that. The Lord in your heart becomes your Guru. Rudram says, let there be a dictator to dictate the right things to one. Let him bear with me. Let him take care of me. Let there be safety on account of these two. I have earned a dictator. I have earned God by virtue of my tapas. I have installed him as my caretaker. So he should be taking care of me, not my karma. My karma shall not work any more in my life. all that karma has been dismissed. What is the power of your karma, even if it is of 100 births? You are an ordinary human being. What karma you could do? Your karma is insignificant and powerless when compared to the power of God. So you install God in your heart and make him responsible for everything that becomes his responsibility. That installed God virtually becomes the ruler of your life. He rules day in and day out. Then whatever happens is not the result of your past karma. This tapas and devotion is the link you have to establish with God. Even there, you are the maker, not he.